Good morning, everybody. This is Tiger Waddell. I am in Seattle at the moment, but I'm a master gardener in Frederick out of the Extension building over on Montague. And today we're going to be talking about growing veggies, which is one of my favorite things because I'm a very big fan of good food and healthy food. And this is an easy way to get them, actually. People post online, oh, well, it costs so much money. It doesn't have to. You just you just have to learn how to do it. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about how to plan your garden and what to plant when and how to get the most out of the time that you spend out there working away. Uh, Somebody's going to monitor the chat thing. So if you have questions, put them there and we'll just head on into this. All right. In Maryland, we have three full growing seasons, which is fabulous. We have a spring season for leafy greens and get all of the root crops in because we have cool weather. But as soon as the frost is gone, you can start planting like crazy, and you can plant potatoes in March and not worry about when the last frost date is. Uh, it's also easier to get out in the garden and do stuff because it's not so hot and you can do a fair amount of physical labor without passing out from the heat. Summer is, of course, hot and it's lots of sunshine, so there are crops that love that sort of thing. Every sort of vegetable has a weather that it likes, and you can fight it all you want, but it won't do any good. You just have to plant what grows when, where, and get the most out of your work that way. Fall is going to be the end of some of your root crops and another round of everything you planted in the spring, pretty muchly. And then, of course, October is when you plant your garlic cloves, because how can one live without garlic? Okay, so here's some of the spring assortment, all of the leafy greens, and everything I have. Now, I plant sugar snap peas in the spring, but you can plant any sort of peas that you like. And of course, all of the leafy greens that you plant now and again in the fall. And the Swiss chard will stay all through spring, summer, fall. You just keep harvesting from the bottom and it keeps growing up. I've seen Swiss chard out at the Frederick News Post garden that's 5 foot tall. So you can just keep going with that stuff. This is also the time to put in your root crops. And the radish, you can get multiple crops during the year. Beets, you can get 2 or 3 rounds of it. Potatoes, you plant once and dig them up in the summer. Same thing with onions, plants once, dig them up in the summer. Carrots, you can pull them up as you need them and until about January, but then the freeze thaw turns them into mush, so they're no longer food, they're something else. Parsnips you can leave in the ground as long as you want and pull them up when you want. I was amazed one year. I pulled up a parsnip in March from the previous year, and it was 7 inches wide and 10 inches long, feed a family of four, and it was still just as sweet and delicious as the first one had been. So parsnips are impervious to our weather. Don't worry about them. Just pull them up when you want to cook them. Now, all of the herbs you can start in the spring, and thyme and sage are pretty well perennials in Maryland. The parsley and the dill and cilantro are and well, the dill reseeds itself every year. Parsley, cilantro, basil, definitely you have to plant them because they're annuals, and they don't really like the hot weather or the cold weather, so they do better in the spring and the fall. Okay, let me find my button for the next slide. Okay, summer. Now, I'm a tomato addict, so I love to plant tomatoes. And this is all the pepper. Now, I have seen a write-up about somebody planting eggplant in late summer and harvesting all through early fall. I haven't tried that yet, but now that I've seen that, I'm going to certainly try it. The green beans do better in the heat. The sugar snap peas like the cool weather in the spring, but the green beans like the warmer weather in the summer. And all of your cucumbers, zucchini, a fair amount of your gourds and melons. Last year, I even had a volunteer in my little community garden in Linganore. I had two watermelon plants pop up on their own. And so, of course, I watered them and said hello. And they both turned out to be sugar babies. So I got three sugar baby watermelons that I had never planted. And the bunnies got the fourth one. They beat me to it, but that's okay. They have to eat too. All right, fall. You do the leafy greens again. And I adore arugula. So I'm constantly planting arugula. Uh, you can redo radish and carrots again. I have seen people regrow potatoes, planting them in late summer, early fall, and harvest them just before the heavy freeze sets in. I haven't tried it, but I've told it's possible. And the brassica you can do in the spring or the fall, but I have better luck in the fall because whitefly is very lively out in Maryland. And I do put little cloches on them sometimes, but you don't have to fight the whitefly as much in the fall as you do in the spring. So it just seems to be an easier time to grow those. And then October, of course, is the magic garlic. Uh, you can order it from somewhere, or you can go to an organic market and just buy some. If there's roots on it, then it is American garlic. Garlic from overseas is required to have the roots completely trimmed off. So if you see some root on the bottom, it is domestic. And you just plant individual cloves and you get a full pot of garlic for each clove. That's a pretty good deal. Oh, this is also the time to plant Egyptian walking onion if you happen to have those. Those are amazing onions. They're mild, kind of like a shallot, so they're fabulous if you're searing scallops or something. And oh, the this committee is grow it, eat it, and I'm fond of the grow it part, and I'm particularly fond of the eat it part. So everything is what can I cook with this? And the Egyptian walking onion are marvelous if you don't want a really sharp onion flavor. They're especially if you're not going to sear the living daylights out of them. So you plant those in the fall and they sprout a little bit, they hang out through the winter, and then in late spring they throw up a shoot with six bulbs on the end of it. Cut that off and I let them grow until September when I harvest the garlic and the walking onion and then get ready to replant them. So that's a yearly cycle. I always have walking onion and garlic going in my garden. All right, how to plant it. I do have a physical plan that I'll show you later on. Any way you can lay out what you're going to do will work. You do have to rotate crops here. And I have a 4 year 4 year plan that I rotate. I notch everything around one time each year. It just eliminates a lot of the difficulties. There are so many diseases and bugs that drop down into the ground and overwinter. So if you plant the same thing there they are ready to gobble up your food. But if you plant something else there, they are dissuaded and they go away. And over time, they sort of fade from your garden. So do plan on rotating every year. You have to consider the light that you have. You can't fight it. If you plant the tomato in the shade, it's not going to be happy. If you're going to plant arugula in burning sun, it's not going to be happy. So consider the light. Go outside, look around, see how much sun you have in each place. Every place I've ever seen, every house has a dozen microclimates all around around the place. So you can plant a sun-loving thing in the sun and a shade-loving thing in the shade. And most of the annual herbs also like a little bit of shade. So you can get more out of your shady space than you might expect, but you're going to have to do hard light for the high summer vegetables. Uh, Now, determinate versus indeterminate is whether you want to eat a few all the time or whether you want, oh, there's somebody waiting, or whether you want to can them. Um, if you want to can your tomatoes and get a determinate variety because you will harvest all at once. They put out all of the fruit at one time. Indeterminate, you get a tomato here, a tomato there, a couple of tomatoes, and you'll have something most every week all through the summer. So it just depends on how you want to use them as to which one of these you get. Uh, you do have to have decent soil. And one of the things I always recommend for people in Maryland, if you haven't if you don't know what's going on in your soil at your house, absolutely get little samples and send it to the University of Delaware because they will include a lead test for free with the soil testing. Remember, this is a part of the country that had muskets and people poured their lead shot in the backyard. So although I haven't had anybody encounter lead in their soil, it's always a possibility and it's not worth the risk, especially since the test is free. So University of Delaware, get on their agricultural website and they'll tell you all about how to send in your sample and get your results. Uh, now I use compost. People can use Mel's mix. They use all sorts of things to grow their food. I just use compost. Every year I add compost in the fall and let the rain soak the nutrients down into the soil, and I might top dress a little bit, throw the occasional eggshell, throw the occasional coffee grind, but I don't do any heavy fertilizer with anything unless I want, and unless I'm growing something determinate that has a huge requirement for food in a brief amount of time, and then I'll use fish emulsion for that. I have read that the Native Americans used to throw a fish in every hole before they planted corn. It seems to have worked, and so I'm going with fish emulsion. But in any sort of fertilizer that provides nutrients for the plant is going to help you out. Ah, mulch or no mulch? That there's 14 answers to that one. I my favorite is straw, especially in the summer when it's so hot and it's so hard to keep water going. I will mulch around all the tomatoes and the eggplant and pull the mulch back from the stem of the plant at least 6 inches in all directions so I can have an easy way to water them. But heavy mulch, I think, is going to cause more problems than it solves. And if I use straw, I'll have it for 2 or 3 years, and then it goes into the compost heap, and then the next year it comes back out as compost. You have to have a watering routine, and just like where to put your plants, you have to acknowledge the water situation. In the spring, I'll probably water twice a week if it doesn't rain. Same thing in the fall. In the summer, there are times that I water every day, every other day for weeks when we have those long multiple days of sun, 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 no water, no water. And you know that's the labor in the summer is keeping everything watered. You plant in the spring, you water in the summer, you pretty well kick back in the fall and you harvest all the way through it. Uh, Time to harvest. It depends on the plant. Radishes you can plant 3 or 4 or 5 times a year. Pull them up when they're the size that you want and plant them again. Now, with crop rotation, I don't rotate within a single year. If I planted a radish in a certain spot, I will plant another radish there that year. But the following spring, when I start all over with my planting, that's when I rotate the crops. Come on, give me the button. All right. So, container. Anything that will hold some soil is okay for growing. You just need to acknowledge the size of the root ball for the plant. Uh, Annuals have much smaller root ball in relation to the plant than something like a tree, which is often a mirror image of the tree above and the root below. And but annuals have this much plant and this much root. So they take less space. Now, the top left is the square foot garden over at the demo garden at the extension building. Then we have a little stack of pots, different sizes. This is not a frame or anything. This is just pots stacked up so you can have different things. We have some little trellises for some beans. Down in the bottom here, we have a strawberry thing. And that's made that way because the ever-bearing strawberries will put out little runners that will give you another plant if you get it in the soil. And this pot lets you put those runners in the soil as they drop down so you can have multiple plants in a single year. And then here is an herb garden with an herb spiral. We also have one of these at the demo garden, so you can go by and see it sometime if you want to. But again, if you have decent soil and decent light and decent water, you can plant in anything that holds the soil. All right, so here is a spring plan. I'll put the cabbages and potatoes out at each end because they don't get real tall. You do have to consider light and shade even within a single garden in a single season. If something gets tall, you don't want to put it in front something that needs more sun. You put it behind the thing that needs more sun. So I usually plant the shorter things along the edges and the taller things in the center so they won't have to fight for the sun. Um, here's the greens, and then the center section is the root crops that will go and go. Now, I usually plant radishes so I can get to them easily because they will harvest more often than any of the other root crops. Oh, and they are delicious if you roast them. If you've ever grown radishes and wonder what to do, a little bit is nice in a salad, but roasted, they are absolutely exquisite. Okay, so here's the summer plan. I still have some more root crops growing. Now, in my garden, this would be mostly tomatoes because I adore tomatoes and I grow six, seven varieties every year. And I saw a thing about how many plants to grow for a family of four for to feed you all year. And it said 10 tomato plants. Well, no, no, no. I need seven plants for me. So that won't work for a family of four if they like tomatoes like I do. But you fill out the little boxes with what you want to do. Each little box is a square foot, and that came from Mel Bartholomew, developed square foot gardening, and he worked through the Rodale Institute in Pennsylvania before organic was even a known term by most people. And he divides the garden into square feet and decides how many of a particular type of thing you can plant in a square foot. Now, tomatoes, I give more room than 1 foot, but that is the absolute minimum. And the most of the root crops you can put several. So it's 1, 4, 6, 9, 16, depending on what you're growing. Green onions, you can easily put 16 in a square foot. And it just makes it easier to remember what you put where and get the most out of the space that you've got. I really do like intensive gardening that takes a smaller garden and gets more output from that square footage rather than having something huge with walkways between every single row. No, I have walkways every 3 feet so I can sit down and weed because I have to garden sitting down. Again, with the fall plan, the brassica, another round of all of the leafy greens, more carrots and radish root crops. Just fill this out with whatever you want to do. I'll show you the plan in a little bit of what I plan for my garden. Here's my map, and this was when I had a space out at the Frederick News Post. There's a beautiful garden there that started out with 30 plots for the employees, and now it's 135 plots. You can rent them by the year, and it's 12 by 12 space. You can just go to town growing food. I grew an enormous amount of food in this thing. So I just wrote what I'm going to put in this 3 by 6 area, what I'm going to put in it, and when I'm going to plant it. And then every year I'll rotate. This goes here, 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 and this goes back over here. The small garden in the community garden in Linganore, I only have 4 sections, so I just step around the 4 times every year. But still, this is an enormous amount of food out of a 12 by 12 space. And it feeds me and my neighbors and my friends, and I give things away. You know, there's these little signs that go up in the summer, you have to make sure you lock your car because the neighbors are growing zucchini and they're going to sneak them into your car when you're not looking. This is done in Excel. I just did I made the column width 2 and it gave me nice little square grids. I don't know if you can see the little grid lines, but it's 1, 2, 3 spots by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are all 3 by 6 beds. The original square foot garden was 4 by 6, but I'm sitting on the ground and I can't reach across. And this way the kids can help because they can reach all the way to the middle. So 3 by 6 is ideal for me, but you do whatever size works for you. And that's true of all of this. Do what works for you. So here is pictures of some weekly harvests. This all came out in 1 week. This all came out in 1 week. This was clearly summer. This was early summer. I'm still getting. I'm starting to get some tomatoes and peppers, but I'm still getting lots of onions and beets and leafy greens back there and purple hull peas. Purple hull peas grow like crazy in Maryland, and they are the black-eyed peas' sweeter, gentler cousin. They don't get grainy like black-eyed peas do, so I always grow purple hull peas. There they are in the shells. That's why they call them purple hull because the hull is purple. The garlic comes up midsummer and goes back in October. This is definitely high summer because it's all kinds of tomatoes and bell pepper and jalapeno pepper. Jalapenos grow like crazy here. This is also an even higher summer because I always grow okra. I love gumbo, but it's got to have fresh okra, and I love fried okra. So I grow okra every year. I just love the stuff. And you can see all the different types of tomatoes that I grow. You need the variety. At least I need the variety. All right, this is why I grow vegetables. This is a squash casserole with squash and cheese and onion. This is some spinach. This is chopped tomatoes, fried okra, purple whole peas, and a piece of cornbread. To me, that's an absolute feast. There's no meat in it, but I don't eat meat every day. I am an omnivore, but I don't eat meat every day. This is just a stir fry with onion and bell pepper and a little chicken. This was my first tomato sandwich of the year. I always have my ceremonial first tomato sandwich. It's a different color every year because the tomatoes are on their own schedule. But it's fun to have something to acknowledge that the plant did all of this, and then some tacos and some pasta, which are critical to life. And if you have basil and tomatoes growing, you can easily make a caprese salad. I don't make my own mozzarella yet, but that's going to happen someday. The most important thing right here is plant what you like to eat. You can experiment down the road about, oh, well, I wonder if this can grow here. I wonder if that can grow here. One of the things that we do in the demo garden is we'll take a couple of the plots and pick a country and a recipe and try to grow everything in that recipe to see if it's even possible where we live. That's how I found out that you can grow ginger here. You can grow turmeric here, which is excellent because I love turmeric and I love ginger. So I grow those all the time too. And they do grow here. They don't grow profusely, but they do grow. You can put a little chunk in the ground and get a larger chunk back out. And then start collecting the recipes for the things you like to eat and see what plants are in them and see if you can grow them here. And if you're not sure, if nobody knows, then try it. It never hurts to try anything. It's not going to be 100% successful. None of this is going to be 100%, but it's going to be fun. You're going to get a fair amount of food out of it. And and you learn something every year. You learn something every month when you garden. It's an ongoing process. You remember, farmers lose their entire crops sometime. So losing a plant hither and thither is not a big deal. It's just, oh, well, I got 8 out of 10, fine. And do something a little different, yes, next year, or plant something different next year. But don't ever get disappointed or depressed because something didn't make it, because it's always a guessing game. All right. That That is the official talk. Now, what do we have in the chat department?
Can stop sharing and then
Okay.
go to questions. And then the first one is, will slides be provided?
Yes, I can send Susan the copy of the slides in JPEG and she can distribute them. Just let her know who needs them or let Rebecca know who needs them.
And then I would suggest, Susan has answered one question, but I would suggest people, if you want to turn on your video, if whatever you want to do, and then, you know, people can and unmute yourself and ask away.
Okay, I see one of what type of pest management do you use? I do not use any sort of pest management. I just rinse them off with water if I see anything on them, but I certainly put out marigolds and other things to a plant to attract beneficial insects that eat the bad guys like the aphids. And I'm I don't want to put any kind of chemical on my food. I'm just very leery of that. Joel Herman, your screen is gorgeous. I still haven't seen the Northern Lights. I hope it happens for me eventually.
Yeah, it's one of my bucket list items. Thank you.
Gorgeous. All right. Any other questions?
Curious about
I see.
seeds.
Go ahead.
What do you think about you know, getting the best seeds to have the best tasting vegetables?
Uh, well, I got about 14 answers for that one too. The my favorite way to get seeds is if I like something I grow one year, I will save some seeds. I will gather them out of the plant and lay them out on my kitchen counter on a paper towel until they're completely dry, then put them in a little plastic sack and I'll have them the next year. So I have some things that I haven't bought seeds for 10 years because I always gather my own seeds. If I want to start something new or if it's a parsnip seeds are very particular. Um, I'll try to go someplace that has organic seeds, which these days is everywhere. You know, Park Seed is one of the original. Oh, I can't mention I can't mention manufacturers, sorry. Some of the original seed companies have organic organic strains now. So if you search for organic whatever you want to grow, organic cucumber seeds, you'll definitely find them. If you buy a cucumber from an organic store, save some of those seeds and you'll have them for next year. I'm always thinking about next year.
Thank you.
Okay, we're getting a lot of questions in the chat.
Okay, yeah, I see one about marigolds. I like the single marigold. I think the insects seem to like them better and they produce tons of seeds. So that's something else that you have a lifetime supply of marigold seeds if you plant the single. They're brilliant orange and the bugs can find them like crazy. Is there a special way to store the seeds? I make sure they are bone dry and I store them in tiny little plastic Ziplocs with some sort of a tag in there of what it was and what year it was. And and then I have a three-ring binder that has the four picture pocket plastic pages in it, and I put the seed packs in the little plastic in the little photo slots. So I can flip through and I can see all of my stuff. I have this it's spring, then summer, then fall, and then the herbs in the back. But on age of seeds, uh the only thing I've ever found that is just maniacal is parsnip seeds. They last 3 years and then that's it. They are absolutely gone. Everything else, you get a lower germination rate, but you still get something out of it. Uh, I have to mention that when the archaeologists were digging up Herod's palace in Jerusalem, 2,000-year-old place, and they found a seed for a palm tree and they planted it, and now they have a 6-foot palm tree from a 2,000-year-old seed. So I'm pretty optimistic about seeds lasting a lot longer than the manufacturers might tell you.
How high should raised beds be?
Whatever height you need. I've seen them 5 foot tall, 4 foot tall, 3.5 foot tall, so you can go up and garden in a wheelchair. The sides of mine, I use 2x6 lumber, and I make my own. Uh, I go to the lumber yard and I get three boards 6 foot long, and I have one of them cut in half. So I have two six and two three, and then I just use metal clamps around the four corners and stick them on the ground and fill it up with compost and take off.
Um,
Now,
I have
what
gone
one
with
caveat there, if you're going to do root crops, you need to turn the soil underneath before you put the compost on because carrots need whatever depth soil they're going to grow. And if you don't have soft soil, you're going to get short carrots.
and I have made higher ones because I have a lot of rabbits around.
Yeah, well, again, you have to adapt to your particular situation, your particular location. You can do them 12 inches tall. There are some nice metal ones that look like stock tanks, which is what people originally were using until they found out there was a market for it, and then they started making them for gardens. They're like 16, 18 inches tall. That works too. If you have something that's that deep, though, read up on hugelkultur and use that when you fill it. You can start with branches and leaves in the bottom and then work your way up through the various layers to have the soil and the compost on the top so you won't have to spend $1 million on soil.
How do you keep deer from eating your crops?
You have to put up a fence. You know, the community garden in Linganore, we have an 8 foot steel fence all the way around the place. We have fence all the way around the garden, the demo garden at the extension building. You know, they get hungry. And a couple of years ago, I had an 8 point buck cruise down the steep slope at my place to eat hosta. I usually put something on them to dissuade them, but it was so dry and horrible that year, I just let them eat them, and they came back. It's fine. You know, sometimes you just have to share.
Um, Sorry, I'm going through. There's one. I lost all my zucchini and squashes last year to vine borers. How do I protect from them this year?
Absolutely do not plant in the same location because those little larvae to have the next round of borers is in that soil where those plants were. So plant in a different place. Never plant the same plant in the same place 2 years in a row.
But what do I do when is there something we
Oh,
can
well,
do?
no, if they're in your plant, it's a goner and there's nothing to be done for it. You just have to avoid it.
Um, I think you did the seeds. As for CO planting, what vegetables, herbs, flowers, etc., are beneficial companion planting for each other?
Oh, say that again.
Um, in companion planting, what vegetables, herbs, and flowers and anything else are beneficial to each other?
Well, certainly one of the fortunate ones is tomato and basil like each other. So there's 2/3 of your caprese salad right there. The only combination that I found that's actually horrifying is beans and onions. They both put out toxins that wipe out their neighbor. So I always plant those in separate places. Other than that, I have never had any problem with companion planting, with the obvious exception of a black walnut. Nothing will grow under a black walnut tree. They make sure of that chemically. They put out enzymes that crater anything else. And yes, the for filling out the deep things, the name is hugelkultur, Hugelkultur. There's an umlaut in there somewhere, but Hugel culture.
Do you have any suggestions for dealing with earwigs? Last year, our garden was infested with them and they decimated the
Oh,
marigolds and other plants.
now that one I don't know. We'll have to research that. Do put that, Mary, put that on the list of stuff to look up because I've never encountered them. I've never had any problems with them. I didn't, if it were not for Macbeth, I wouldn't know they existed.
Um, let's see, what do you put on hosta to protect them from deer?
Uh, can I answer this or not? There is a product that is made of rotten eggs and onion and garlic that you spray on. The manufacturer recommends once a month. I do it every couple of months, and they absolutely stay away from it. But do not stand downwind when you're spraying it because it's horrible smelling. And and the smell for humans is gone by the next day, but the deer notice it nonstop. So I usually wait 6 to 8 weeks before I put it on again, but the stuff will stop the deer. They just walk on by like it's concrete.
Even if it rains, you don't have to reapply it.
I've never had to.
And you can find this in garden centers and big
Yeah,
box.
yeah. In any of the big box stores have it.
Can you recommend specific varieties of specific veggies that grow really well in our areas?
I don't know, the thing I grow the most variety of is tomatoes, and I have yet to find a tomato that doesn't grow well here. As you know, we have miraculous weather so that most everything does well.
What's the term to describe the layers of branches, compost, and soil? I think
That yeah, that's a hugelkultur.
oh, you answered that. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I did see that question go by.
Is it
No,
okay?
we can't grow avocados here unless you have a greenhouse or an orangery. It gets too cold, it kills them. Now, if you can figure out a way to haul them in every winter into your orangery, then you will be fine. Oh, it's what the French aristocrats had them in their castles to grow orange trees because they have colder weather than we do.
Um, Let me go. There's one I'm trying to get to.
The indeterminate and determinate seed, you should be able to tell the difference because it should be on the packet. Now, if it's a vegetable you bought in the store, there's no way to know unless you get the specific variety and look it up. But if you do get the variety, you can look it up and it'll tell you if it's determinate or indeterminate.
Okay, I'm looking for a link. Sorry. Is it okay to plant the same plant in smaller container garden like a 1x4 and not rotate?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, no, it depends. If it's something that attracts a disease or a bug, you almost have to rotate. But even if you just have two little beds, rotate it through the garden. Don't plant it in the same place. At least move it a couple of feet away.
There's a link for HGIC that has a lot of resources, the Home and Gardens information.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
And now I saw a question pop up, but I didn't get to it in time.
which one is that?
I don't know.
Should we be starting seeds inside now?
Oh yeah. Well, if you have the proper conditions, you can start your summer things like peppers and tomatoes in late February, early March. I start everything outside direct seed except for peppers and tomatoes. Everything else, I just stick the seed in the ground and the right time and it grows.
One thing I learned about starting seeds is that's kind of fun, okay, for the is that it's good if they're inside under a grow light or something to kind of run your hand over the small plants to help them get used to movement.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, dude, become the wind.
The way, and it feels so nice. It's such a sweet. It's
Yeah. Yeah, you will need a grow light, and unless you keep your house super warm, you're probably going to need a heating pad, a plant heating pad. Don't use a regular one. It'll blow your electricity apart. A plant heating pad underneath your seed tray. But you can absolutely start seeds indoors here. I have friends who have racks and racks of seeds every year. I just I buy starters for the tomatoes and the peppers, and everything else is just in the ground directly. Can I start seeds in an empty jug and place it outside? Well, the jug would have to have a drainage hole in it So you'd
Yeah.
have to find a place to put it in the house that it wouldn't wreck the floor.
Well, you can find that out information. We have a seminar that covers that, but you can find out how to do that probably online. I can look and see real quick, but yeah, it's a good way to start them. And if they need stratification or cold weather, you can start them in the winter. It's probably too late for that.
Yeah, there are things that their leaves. No, I think it's the roots that puts out the enzymes in the black walnut to kill all the interlopers, as it were.
And what about melons? Do melons do well here?
Oh yes, well, I told you I had two watermelon plants pop up in my garden on their own, and they were both sugar baby. And so I got four melons out of this that I never planted. I ate three, and the bunny ate the other one. It beat me to it. But melons grow very well here. Now, the sugar babies are small. You can't grow the giant Hempstead watermelons because we don't have enough heat for enough time. But the little sugar babies that are delicious grow beautifully here. And all kinds of melons, the variety of melons and gourds that you see in the organic markets, you can grow them here, but get seeds because one of the things I really do like the I think it's called a delica. It's a little yellow melon with green stripes on the outside, and it's shaped kind of like a cucumber. And and it had to have been a hybrid because I planted the seeds and the plants came up great, but no fruit.
Mm.
Leaf rust on fig plants. That's another one I'll have to look up. So Mary put that on lookup list too, and we'll post some results on that. I saw another question go by, but I didn't catch it. I just saw it pop, and then the leaf rust thing
How to
came in.
protect against lantern flies, which things go after. Oh man, they're beyond. I will say they're beyond.
Kill them any way you can.
It's getting.
Lantern flies,
Should we
absolutely.
should we
Kill
avoid?
the. Now you have to be fast because they're really quick. I tried to step on one on my driveway, and it jumped up like it was a Olympic athlete. So you have to be fast or spray them with something. If you find the eggs, scrape them down and smash them. We got to get rid of the lantern fly because they're awful.
Are there plants to avoid?
No? What do you mean? Plants to avoid? I don't like
Or
poison
or
ivy.
or that attract, like if you're trying to stay away, are there certain plants that attract lanternflies more than others?
Well, they seem to like to put their eggs on trees, so that isn't anything you're going to plant in your garden. I haven't seen them associated with a particular vegetable, but I would certainly keep an eye out for them. I haven't ever seen any in the community gardens. I've seen them at my house. Can rhubarb be planted here? Oh boy, can it. We have a thing in the demo garden that we planted a rhubarb and Jerusalem artichoke next to each other to see who could win. And they're both huge. Rhubarb grows excellently well here. And it's a perennial. Plant it once and eat it forever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, ordinarily after the questions, we go take a tour of the demo garden, and we can't do that today since we're all at home. But by all means, when you get a chance, go up to 330 Montview. It's off of Rosemont, and in the back of the building is a huge garden. There's landscape plants, and there's hedgerow plants, and there's the little herb spiral and all kinds of veggies growing. By all means, go take a tour. And if the building's open, come in and ask questions. If you have specific problems and you have samples of leaves or bugs or something, put put them in Ziplocs and bring them in the building on Monday afternoon, and they'll try to get you an answer. Uh, one of the asparagus is another one that you plant once and it goes forever. or
Yeah.
at least your lifetime. Now, some people will trim the little sprouts down so you get bigger sprouts later on that year. Uh, and if you want to, you can get really compulsive and mound the dirt up around them as they grow, and you'll have a white asparagus called aspargle that is super tender and delightful. Now, I saw a question go by, but I missed it. I just saw it blink in and out.
I'm trying to, yeah, Tree of Heaven does attract lanternflies. Can you give advice on how to determine if a particular location has enough light without having to do it trial and error?
Well, just look outside in the morning and look outside in the evening and see where the shadows are and see where the sun is.
It's kind of
You
a,
know, if you want to see what area is absolutely shaded, find the neighbor with a drone and shoot it up and get an overhead picture of your house. But remember, it's going to be different spring, summer, fall because the sun is higher and lower in the sky, and if more to the south and farther back toward the north. So one look is not enough.
and someone posted, I've got another question to go to. Um, Sun maps. What about sun maps?
Are there some, well, but they would have to be a
Oh,
map that responds to your location, your trees,
no,
your house, your shrubs, your, I don't know, the car you always have parked in a single location.
I understand it now. Make a sun map of at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., 12 noon.
We'll do 8,
Or
12, and 4 will do it.
yeah, that's what that was. Um, any books you can recommend for newbies to planning a vegetable garden? I think somewhere I have.
Yeah, well, I do love Mel Bartholomew's Square Foot Garden. Even if you don't work in that small of a space, it's still excellent information on how to prepare your soil, how to nourish the soil, what to look for. I don't get as compulsive as he does, but it certainly will tell you how many things you can plant of a plant type in a single square foot and get you some intense production out of a small space.
How do you find out what soil conditions work for a specific vegetable by nutrients?
I just try to have fresh compost every fall, so I have a variety of nutrients. It's a long list, and you can go crazy trying to plant 5 different plants in 5 different types of soil. I go for the most variety of nutrients in the soil, so it'll handle anything I might plant.
Do you have get your soil tested and how often?
Well, yeah, well, they recommend every 5 years. But
And
if I'm
then,
constantly adding compost, I'm constantly adding nutrients, so it's not going to be that much of a problem.
yeah, but it does when you're starting, especially.
Yeah, I saw something blink by that said vermiculture, but I didn't see the rest of it.
I'll go back and see if I can find it. We have just had a seminar on permaculture. So,
Yep. And worm castings are amazing. I've talked to people now who bought sacks of worm castings at the big box stores, and they are thrilled with the results. I haven't tried them myself, but if people are thrilled, I'm going to check it out.
okay. Oh yeah, for compost, you use vermiculture. Um,
Yeah, there is a seminar every year on vermiculture,
and
and people who use the worm castings love them.
and as Susan's pointed out, for many of the answers, there are videos on the HGIC website that you can go
Yeah.
to that was posted. Good question, Jennifer. HGIC, we just keep using that acronym, and I just whipped through what it meant one time, but it's Home and Garden Information Center. Is there a risk of using too much compost? What ratio of soil to compost is good?
I have been adding nothing but compost to my garden now for 5 years, and everything is growing beautifully. So I would say no, because you're constantly getting a refill of fresh soil, fresh material, fresh nutrients. And really, soil is nothing more than dirt, which is geology. which is clay, silt, and sand with the bacteria and all of the mycelium and everything added to it. So that's what you're doing when you add compost. So my garden is all compost. And I keep punching a button to mess things up. Ah, don't touch, don't touch.
What does, isn't there a ratio or something that you would?
No, no, my garden is entirely compost.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another one that you won't get 14 answers on that. You'll get 83 answers on that. And if the vegetables grow, then they're all right.
What about horse composted manure in gardens?
Ma manure is fine, but you have to let it age for a year and then break it up and add it. And accept the fact that it's quite strong, so use it sparingly. And if you can find it, go for goat. A friend of mine bought a property just outside of the Loop in Houston, and they had goats there, but the previous owner had goats and they left them. And she wanted to relocate the goats after a while, so she moved them to another part of the property and put some rose bushes there. Now we're talking the standard hybrid t rose bush, uh, that's like 4 foot tall. Her roses were 7 foot tall.
Wow.
So goat guano is amazing.
Okay.
Tiger, do you do hydroponic classes?
I don't,
I don't do hydroponics. I don't know if somebody does or not.
we haven't ha had a seminar at least since 2017 on hydroponics. Something to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we know,
Whoever asked that question, you want to come teach us?
I would love to learn because it seems so efficient.
yeah,
Well, yeah, it is. It's a little more finicky than soil, but it has the advantage that you don't have to have soil. Yes, mushrooms grow here. In fact, there is a fellow north of Frederick who has a farm and he has a mushroom program, and you can go out for seminars and bring the inoculated
log.
plant tree branches back to your house. Yeah, mushrooms definitely grow here. Well, in fact, morels grow wild in the woods
Just be
if
sure,
you're in the right place at the right time.
just be sure you know what you're harvesting if you're going out.
Yeah, be extremely careful if you're foraging because we have more poisonous mushrooms in this country than anywhere else in the world. And every year, some poor Austrian tourist picks up something that they thinks is something that they have at home, and they eat it and they end up in the hospital. So be extremely careful foraging with mushrooms.
There's a question about, I think I saw radish in your summer garden. If it
Oh
was,
yeah, I grow radishes pretty much from April to September.
okay.
I do not know anybody that has the skill to teach safe mushroom foraging. There are people, but I don't know any of them.
Yeah, I just know to caution. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then I always warn people who are coming to visit from Europe, don't go picking mushrooms. You're gonna get a bad surprise. But something else that grows wild here, if you've ever encountered it, is ramps. And ramps make the most incredible pesto you'll ever eat in your entire life. If you know somebody that has ramps, talk to them. Or if you know somebody, I would not put dog manure in my garden. No. No, I would do large animal manure, but not dog or cat.
yeah,
Now,
Tiger,
chicken is cool. Yes, that's exactly the spelling, ramps, just like a slope for a wheelchair. And they grow early spring. They like to grow under oak trees. A friend of mine gets them every year and gives me some, and it just the pesto is divine. Now, one thing you can do with mushrooms, one of my neighbors is a PhD biologist, and he does go foraging, and he brings back things like lion's mane, and his wife makes this spectacular pasta dish with lion's mane. But you got to find somebody who knows what they're doing.
can, if you have a question that comes to you later, you can go to the Home and Garden Information Center, and there's a little place to type in things. Like I just typed in mushrooms to see what I could get. And I'm typing in
Yeah.
ramps and it's
Yeah.
not going it. Nope, it didn't like ramps for veggies. It wanted to give me other ramps.
Okay. Yes, you can absolutely share seeds. We have a seed box in the demo garden, and you can pick up seeds and drop off seeds. Just make sure they're marked what they are.
What they
And
are, the date, and
yeah. Yeah, but like I said, seeds will last a lot longer than the manufacturers want you to think.
well, and where you could drop off seedlings, that's always an issue with
Well, now on that one, check with your local library because a lot of time they'll have a seed exchange sometime in the spring or early summer. And you can
seedlings,
take your seedlings there and swap them for some other kind of seedlings or
but not,
just give them to them.
yeah, just seedlings, not just seeds.
Yeah, seedlings. You can take seedlings to the library plant exchange.
Call first.
Well, yeah, you have to find out when the seed exchange is scheduled. You can't just show up with
Yeah,
with your seedlings and hope it's going to be soon.
I know it is
But
hard with those little babies.
Walkersville, Middletown, I guess there's a half a dozen libraries around Frederick that all do it. I don't think Frederick City does, but all of the local libraries do.
I think Urbana might, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I think they do too.
This would be where we normally walk outside and get to see things.
Yeah, alas.
Somebody put a plant swap in there. That's a good idea. But I do know I grow them and I don't want to get rid of them. And often my neighbors already have their surplus.
Yeah.
Seedlings galore.
You are most welcome. This is fun, and I'm always ready to help people grow more tasty food. There have been studies of areas called blue zones around the world where they have a larger than average people over 100 years old. And the only thing they have in common is they get light exercise and they eat fresh food. So gardening gives you both. You get light exercise and you get fresh food. So it's an excellent way to go for 100.
So are there any more questions? If you could either just unmute and ask, or we're really to the end, aren't we?
All right. Well, thank you all for attending and thank you all for your questions. And we will look up the two that we didn't have an answer for, so we'll know better next time. It's
Thank
always a learning experience. Have a great day. Have a happy garden.